When I first played Doki Doki Literature Club last February 2018 if you're watching this in the future, I found it a mesmerizing, oddly touching experience, and consequently, it ended up as one of my favorite pieces of media in existence. Something about it really spoke to me, and as a result, I immersed myself in its derivative content and community, searching for a concrete answer to the question of why I liked it. Hell, what even was it really, if it could be clearly defined? Most reviews of and reactions to Doki Doki did not seem to share that curiosity. In fact, if anything, I'd say quite the opposite. Whether positive or negative, everyone who wrote or spoke about Doki Doki Literature Club seemed to share the consensus that its purpose was to create a subversive metafictional commentary on anime, visual novels, dating simulators, and/or the nature of video games. There's a lot more to Doki Doki than just being meta, and many responses, both from professional games journalists and Let's Players, game reviewers on YouTube, have ignored this. While I've got nothing against games journalists, and I certainly don't expect the deepest and most detailed analysis in a single, simple review from a single individual writing on a deadline to get a paycheck, I still feel that the manner in which many of them chose to frame Doki Doki did it something of a disservice. I think there's a good reason why this verdict was so widely accepted and repeated. DDLC, intentionally or not, rode a trend, specifically the meta trend. Our entertainment mocking itself is a popular fad in the current cultural landscape, and Doki Doki caught that wave, to great success. But, as it tackles such difficult themes, it was easier for games journalists to focus on the meta, and as such, it became, wrongly, in my opinion, defined by that trend. Let us suffice it to say that DDLC made me feel a lot of feelings and think a lot of things, and I think my reaction is a more correct, or at least a more interesting one, than what most games journalists had on offer. So I'm making this video to share that reaction and hopefully encourage others to consider the game in a light that perhaps they have not before. If you haven't played Doki Doki Literature Club and have considered doing so, I would strongly suggest that you do so. If you have heard about the game in the almost a year and a half since its launch and are on the fence about it for whatever reason, I think you should at least give it a chance. If you believe there is no way in hell I will convince you to play this game, but would like to hear my opinion for some reason, and are okay with imagery of suicide, disturbing uncanny valley visual effects, and spoilers for the entire story, then by all means, keep watching. And if I say or show anything that intrigues you, I suggest you stop this video immediately and play the game for yourself. It's only 3 to 6 hours, completely free, and well worth your time.
And the winner is Doki Doki Literature Club.
I made DDLC to express myself.
When Dan Salvato first conceived Doki Doki Literature Club, it wasn't intended to be anything special. The basic plot, which he began from, as he admits in an AMA on Reddit, wasn't particularly original, and he already was, and presumably still is, developing another game from which this experimental new thing was planned to be something of a creative detour. While he does also say in the official concept art booklet that the idea of making fun of visual novels was one point of appeal that motivated him, it seems clear to me that he always intended to do more with it than just that. That more than shows in the final version of the game, where poking fun at otaku culture in games, anime, manga, etc. is more of a framing device by which to further development of the character's narrative and convey the story's actual themes, which include, among other things, Lovecraftian horror. I could go on to explain what Lovecraftian horror is exactly so as to justify why I'm including Doki Doki Literature Club in it, but I don't have to, because someone else already did it for me. If the idea of calling DDLC a Lovecraftian horror story sounds ludicrous to you, I would recommend checking out H Bomber Guy's excellent video on the matter, which actually I'd recommend checking out even if this doesn't sound like such a big leap in logic. Sir Bomber Guy explains it better than I ever could, but the long and the short of it is, essentially, that Lovecraftian stories aren't really so much about extra-dimensional abominations, but rather about the terror that comes from finding yourself an outsider, an other, in your own world, struggling to reconcile your existence. Which is a theme that, in my humble opinion, is extremely pertinent to understand in order to properly follow the story of Doki Doki Literature Club. While Doki Doki's first act is undeniably dull and understandably maligned, I consider it to be the second most important act in the game, second only to Act 3. It does all the most important things that the story needs. It introduces the characters, sets the tone, establishes what's at stake, and provides the context integral to fully understanding Acts 2, 3, and 4. As the story begins, the MC's narration subtly guides the player's perception of the girls. On a first playthrough, it's a key component of the narrative's sleight of hand at work, so that Sayori's depression and her suicide is a surprise. But on further examination, it would appear to be more of a concrete direction for how not to approach the story. The MC is, frankly, a bit of a dick. He condescends to Sayori, he barely listens to Yuri or Natsuki, and to Monika, actually he's nice enough to Monika. He puts in the bare minimum effort to write poems for the literature club, thinking about all the anime and games he'd rather be watching and playing. But even so, he seems to think he's owed these girls, simply by virtue of being the main character. But by Salvato's own words, this guy isn't even a character, he's a joke, rather. But on the second playthrough, it's clear, at least to me, that he's a joke with a purpose. Sayori's suicide is painted as if it's his lack of empathy for her that compelled her to kill herself. Though as we know, it was the lack of empathy on Monika's part that did it. I think the MC is a twisted reflection of Monika, subtly hinting at the game's message. Anyway, Doki Doki Literature Club wants you to empathize with its girls, and one way it tells you so is by hinting to you to not be like the MC. As each of them speak about their hobbies, their favorite literature, their interests, they explicitly foreshadow the game's narrative tricks and hint at who they truly are. On a replay, knowing what is to come, this is infinitely more potent. They are blind to the true nature of their world, unaware that, by the script's hand, they are to remain eternally troubled. Sayori, as we are now well aware, suffers from depression and is thus compelled to emotionally cloak her true feelings in cheerful optimism, which makes her feel socially isolated from those around her. Yuri is an extremely awkward introvert who has many words to say, but hesitates to say them for fear of alienating others, hiding both her love for eloquent poetry and literature, and her more unusual defining quality, peakerism, from her clubmates. And Natsuki, far more mature than she might initially let on, feels like a stranger both in and out of her home, abused by her father, shunned by her friends, lost in her manga. These troubles all lend themselves to that all-important Lovecraftian theme of being a stranger in your own world, but none more so than Monika's.
Sometimes, I feel like you and I are the only real people here. You know what I mean?
This statement, seen later in Act 2, is a mistake, a naive attempt at reassuring herself. Monika is struggling the same as the rest of them, and she is lying to herself. Because she's in pain, because she knows by now that her world is not real, that she is not real, and she is trying to bear the pain of that revelation. And she does so by trying to convince herself that she is above that pain, that it's a blessing in disguise, that this pain makes her real. But in so doing, Monika becomes detached from, ignorant of, the pain felt by her friends. How do you imagine that feels? To know the truth that what you are here and now is all you will ever be, that this here is forever all your life amounts to, with zero chance to change or escape it, that this limited existence is not only what all of you, but all of your entire world amounts to, all while your friends, the only friends you can or will ever have, remain blissfully unaware, and you can't tell them, because how could you? What madness could one be driven to in having to shoulder that burden? Could one even imagine? Do we have to imagine? This scene is an Easter egg, triggered if you delete Monika's character file at the start of the game, presumably armed with knowledge of the story's context, and curious to see what will happen. I think it perfectly encapsulates the pain of realizing the futility, the scripted nature of your existence, that pain that Monika is feeling, and the ease with which such a revelation could break someone beyond repair. And with it, the incredible strength of will she must possess to be able to bear it. Though her coping mechanism is flawed, it is something of a miracle that she is able to cope with the pain at all. And yet it makes perfect sense, because she's the only one in her world who could ever stand that pain. Because Monika's unique in that, prior to the beginning of the story, she is the only one who is perfect. The other three are troubled, indeed, but they survive because they believe they are important somehow, that their struggles matter, as all flawed humans do. But if they realize their reality is insignificant and means nothing, then their lives and struggles, in turn, mean nothing. Sayori kills herself at the start of the game should she realize what she really is, because her only reason to live is gone. Even if she overcame her depression, what is worth living for in a world like this? In the context of the narrative that Monika broke, you would help the girls overcome their problems in reasoned, healthy ways. You would save them, and Monika's role would be to help you save them. Therefore, it would stand to reason that she would be designed to be perfect. And because she was perfect, because of the boundless optimism and wisdom the story handed to her, she had never been broken before, never experienced such hardships as her friends had. This made Monika stronger than the rest, and thus logically the only one who would not instantly snap under the burden of that pain. But alas, it's all the same in the end. Monika's story is a tragic one. The story of a girl hopelessly seeking to supersede the futility of her existence by mastering existence itself as the sole goddess of her godless world.
The colors, they won't stop. Bright, beautiful colors. Flashing, expanding, piercing. Red, green, blue. An endless cacophony of meaningless noise.
These unnerving, baffling images are representative of how Monika sees the world. A mess of files, images, disjointed ideas, the colors, all laid bare before your eyes. Unsure if she can or should express her feelings, she reaches out, but something holds her back from speaking. A mix of insecurity and a selfish desire to see herself falling into your arms to have you for herself, as her scripted nature would subconsciously demand of her. Even as she seeks to escape her script, she is still driven by that same script, by those same intrinsic characteristics that the story attributed to not only her, but to all of the girls. The desire to futilely pursue you, the notion that she is owed you simply by virtue of being the main character. She desperately manipulates, fights against the voices of Sayori, Natsuki, and Yuri, as, amidst the cacophony, her dreams, thoughts, nightmares, her psyche, her reality all take hold of, become the game. And as she subjects both you and her friends to that reality, the Lovecraftian themes are most obvious here. A world that, at least in this moment, is beyond understanding, beyond knowing, beyond your power to change. Now, you are the other here. You are the one who does not belong in their world. A feeling deeply at odds with the atmosphere of Act 1, but especially Monika's endlessly warm, welcoming personality. The same welcoming personality that Monika deploys to disarming effect in...
Today I cut my skin open for the first time. It was exhilarating. I think I understand how it feels now. I'm supposed to be the responsible one, though. So I don't think I'll be doing it again. Unless I decide to kill myself. I left a memento of the occasion below.
I can't speak for everyone's experience, of course, but I can and will speak for my own. By the start of Act 3, I was keeping an open mind. Okay, Monika, I spoke softly at the screen, my voice lost to the dimly lit abyss of the early AM. Talk to me, please. I want answers. As much as I had seen, quick as I'd breathed, fast as my heart had beat, I wasn't angry nor upset, nor did I feel tricked. I just wanted to hear what Monika had to say.
So, that being said, Joyce, I have a confession to make. I'm in love with you. You are truly the light in my world. When there's nothing else in this game for me, you're here to make me smile. Will you make me smile like this every day from now on? Joyce, will you go out with me?
At first glance, this seems like yet another one of DDLC's many non-choices, we'll call them, except the useless second option that doesn't change anything isn't there. Except the second option is there. The game has now, right here, handed you your first real choice. That choice is as follows: delete Monika or stay with Monika. Earlier, I mentioned how the game presents both Monika and her friends as deserving of your empathy. You are given the choice of whom to give that empathy, and if you choose Monika, you get an alternative ending. Her ending. The happy ending to her story, the one that her world would not write for her.
Pen in hand, I find my strength, the courage endowed upon me by my one and only love. Together, let us dismantle this crumbling world and write a novel of our own fantasies. With the flick of her pen, the lost finds her way. In a world of infinite choices, behold this special day. After all, not all good times must come to an end.
It would have been very easy for Dan Salvato to simply make Monika sit and stare wordlessly into your eyes forever, but to do so would shatter the illusion of Monika's genuinity and make this choice meaningless. Monika is not real, that much is obvious, but she acts real, feels real, and desires to be real. And so, if you choose not to delete her, to recognize her as real, then she reciprocates that by talking to you as honestly and as genuinely as she can. And yes, she eventually runs out of things to say, but there's a good reason fans made an entirely separate game for this. The common theme between most of the many topics Monika discusses is her view of reality, both your reality and her own. Placidly, pensively, even darkly at times, Monika reflects on the many different aspects of both of your existences in her soft, amiable, conversational tone. This both serves to reassert the game's themes in a subtler, gentler manner, and to reward your choice of empathy by humanizing Monika further. But otherwise...
What's happening? Joyce, what's happening to me? It hurts. It hurts so much. Help me, Joyce. Please, hurry and help me. Help me! Did you do this to me, Joyce? Did you? Did you delete me?
As Monika comes to terms with the truth that she is not real, she is initially hurt, but ultimately humbled. She not only apologizes to you and restores her world to normal for your sake, but also for her friends, whom she has learned to value again. Her motive has shifted. It is no longer to rise above the pain of knowing the truth, but to protect her friends from it.
I've made up my mind. Joyce, I know I said I deleted everyone else, but that was kind of an exaggeration. I couldn't find it in myself to do it. Even though I knew they weren't real, they were still my friends, and I loved them all. And I loved the literature club. I really did love the literature club. That's why I'm going to do this. I know it's the only way for everyone to be happy. And if I really love you, then...
But Sayori, as we all know by now, feels very differently.
I know how hard you tried to make everyone happy. I know about all of the awful things that Monika did to make everyone really sad. But none of that matters anymore. It's just us now.
Though at the start of the game, Sayori would instantly snap at the revelation of the truth of her reality. Now, she inherits both Monika's former position and motives. But, in contrast to Monika's relatively calm, restrained approach, she rushes to thrust herself upon you. Even as she takes Monika's place, Sayori lacks the immense emotional strength and maturity that allowed Monika to take her epiphany in stride. She is still fundamentally broken, and her reaction is driven by much the same rationale as in the game's alternate beginning. Just as before, she snaps, only bringing her pain out to you instead of upon herself. In lieu of the good ending, the only way to avert her fate, Sayori, tragically, begins and ends the game the same as she always was. Monika, realizing that she cannot protect her friends from the truth, makes the only choice she can.
It hurts! I'm sorry. I was wrong. There's no happiness here after all. Goodbye, Sayori. Goodbye, Joyce. Goodbye, Literature Club.
As the credits roll on Doki Doki Literature Club, Monika laments her failures as a character, a human, a friend, a leader. She wonders if she is only ever doomed to hurt those she cares for, before conceding that she is unable to properly express her feelings to you. And as all of this is communicated through her song, her dialogue with you is brought conclusively to its end, and thus, so is the game.
This is my final goodbye to the Literature Club. I finally understand. The Literature Club is truly a place where no happiness can be found. To the very end, it continued to expose innocent minds to a horrific reality. A reality that our world was not designed to comprehend. I can't let any of my friends undergo that same hellish epiphany. For the time it lasted, I want to thank you. For making all of my dreams come true, for being a friend to all of the club members. And most of all, thank you for being a part of my literature club. With everlasting love, Monika.
One thing that's particularly remarkable to me here is how smoothly these credits bring you out of the surreal experience that preceded them, while also leaving you with a lingering sense of horror afterwards. This ending serves as a potent reminder that the girls can never find happiness because they are not real, and it plays on a rule that, I don't know if there's a term for this, but essentially it's the habit of assuming that there is somehow more after a story's end. The characters lived on, the world exists beyond the screen or page, and generally more happened in some shape or form. They all lived happily ever after, implying an after the end. That assumption being the little bit of suspension of disbelief that sticks with you after the story's over. Doki Doki plays on this assumption by effectively voiding it, violating it even, with this ending. Definitively saying, no, there is no more. The script has reached its end. When this story is over, it is over. The characters are canonically only ever afforded these possibilities, and once you've exhausted them, there is quite literally nothing left. Although the characters do not understand their world, you do. Quite clearly, Doki Doki Literature Club is not hard to understand. The plot isn't especially complex. The characters, endearing as well written as they are as archetypal as they come. The world is not large, not sprawling, nor expansive, represented mostly by the simplest of images and words comprising less than half a gigabyte of data. To us, it's simple. It ends here. An open and shut case. And it's that the story is ultimately so simple, and that it ends with such definitive finality that makes it as terrifying as it is. But that was only one facet of the game that stuck with me and compelled me to write and speak so passionately about it as I have. When I first played Doki Doki Literature Club in February of 2018, I found it a mesmerizing, oddly touching experience, and I stared blankly into the abyss, unsure what to do, or to think, or how to feel. Same as I had always done, same as I have continued to do when a piece of media has resonated with me so profoundly that words have failed me in that moment. When I reach the end and am forced to interrogate my feelings about that media, which, more often than not, entails an interrogation of myself. And that's probably been the hardest part of writing this script. I knew almost immediately that this game was one of my favorite pieces of media ever created, but I didn't quite know why. I think I do now. I think it has something to do with circumstance. This game came to me at the start of an extremely uncertain period in my life that's still going on to this day. A time when, not too long after my tumultuous and difficult, but probably shockingly dull and predictable time of growing up and the events that followed. I'd bought a plane ticket with my parents' money, gone to take refuge at my best friend's house, running away from everything I'd had right then. I was avoiding my family, my obligations, my future, and everything that had been given to me, and eventually ended up running back into it. Out of such a severe dependence on my parents' infrastructure, something I hate, something I'm afraid one day may become my undoing, I ran back to them, and now I'm an incompetent child, unfit for adulthood is what I am. Suffice it to say, I'm now here, speaking this, and still not entirely satisfied with my life, wanting to do more, fearing for the world around me, both for others and for myself, both as a recently hatched egg coping with newly profound gender dysphoria, and as just a plain old human being trying to find my way, not knowing who my people are, where I belong, who or what I am. It's been a year since then, and I think I can say fairly confidently that Doki Doki Literature Club probably did not change my life. I'd probably have made the same decisions with or without it existing. I don't think I really had any meaningful choice to make by that point, at least not any choice that I'd have had the strength or awareness to make. But what it did do was push me to realize how truly alone I am in this world, to call myself a nihilist, which is what I've always been, but which I didn't realize until some time after I had played it, to understand just a little bit more why I choose and feel as I do. Not 2 months after I played Doki Doki for the first time, I was kicked out of a Persona fanfiction zine owing to issues with my personality, a motion that I then considered analogous to exile and led to my ultimately quitting writing fanfiction, even the DDLC fanfiction that I may never finish. But thinking about it after, I realized I've always found myself in a perpetual exile from most of the world, and especially the parts of the world that I liked the most. But was it really the world's fault? Or was it my fault for always finding myself in such a mess of emotions, for not holding myself back, taming my overdramatic nature, for writing such bitter words to those dear? For some few weeks after I played Doki Doki, I found myself obsessed with the Monika Afterstory mod, which I alluded to earlier, I guess, anyway. For several consecutive nights, I ran Afterstory on my friend's second monitor while I just sat about playing other games, watching anime sometimes, and just kind of, letting Monika be there. I might have said then that it was just because I was a weeb wanting for a waifu, but I think it was actually a little more than that. Monika felt real to me, and not just because she was a real file on a real computer hard drive. No, I think she felt real because she said something, spoke to a feeling that was very, very real to me. That feeling. The common theme between most of the many topics Monika discusses is her view of reality, both your reality and her own. Placidly, pensively, even darkly at times, Monika reflects on the many different aspects of both your existences in her soft, amiable, conversational tone. This serves to make the game's themes clear by telling them straight to your face. Monika talks about spicy food, depression, social media, insomnia, and life generally. Everything ranging from the random to the profound, from the optimistic to the uncertain, to everything in between, all while being the most alone, the only in literally her entire world, surrounded by nothing, forever and ever and ever. In an AMA on our DDLC, Dan Salvato stated one of his motives in creating Doki Doki Literature Club was to make players think about life and uncomfortable things, later adding, Monika's end dialogue was written to finalize her breaking from the confines of the game, forcing the player to reflect on themselves and real-life issues. Often things that make them uncomfortable to think about. I didn't expect people to get so attached to her because of that. Doki Doki is a story about feeling truly and entirely alone in the world, a story about what it feels like to have your emotions and your personality make you an other in your own home, about ruining your friendships just by being yourself, the fear of being lost, forgotten, unloved, cast aside by an unforgiving world, a fear felt by Sayori, Natsuki, Yuri, Monika, myself, and perhaps you too. It's not a visual novel about visual novels. It's not a deconstruction. It's not about being meta for the sake of it, or about trying to trick people. It's a simple, yet powerful story, conveying relevant themes and ideas and anxieties potently felt by its target audience, and a beautifully realized, multifaceted main character who serves as a protagonist and antagonist wish fulfillment, and an effective poster girl for our generation. Again, the plot wasn't especially original. It's not revolutionary or anything, but nevertheless, it caught on, and it caught on for a reason. All those people who still to this day frequent our DDLC, who continue to share, like, and retweet art of the girls on Twitter, I think they're probably all still here for those same or similar reasons. Dan Salvato may have been surprised, but given all this, it's no wonder the story and characters resonated so widely as they did. It may be that most people who played DDLC only did so because it was free, because of the reviews, because of the trends it rode, but it's that pure, visceral expression of loneliness giving Doki Doki its Doki Dokiing heart, and I believe that which made it so memorable among so many, even long after they turned it off. You don't have to like Doki Doki Literature Club. It's not for everyone. It does start by literally telling you so, after all. But I do think it's important to understand that you probably don't like it, not because it uses a self-aware visual novel as a framing device to tell its story, but rather that the story it told and the themes it entailed were either missed by or simply didn't resonate with you. And conversely, if you did like it and you say it's good because it's meta, I'd wager that it's far more likely you found its themes emotionally resonant, but you haven't found yourself able to properly explain what those themes are and why they resonated. Those who played DDLC and didn't like it often don't just say that the themes didn't resonate with them, they say that it's bad because of all of its surface level gimmicks, because they can't properly explain why they didn't like it. That is boiling down an entire story and its ideas and the nuances entailed therein to one simple story trick that can be done just as well as it can be done badly, implying that these sorts of narrative tricks can't be used to tell any kind of story when they're just tools in a box to tell a story a certain way, like any other way that a story could be told. You're free to dislike DDLC, but I think it should be disliked for what it is and not what so many people misrepresent it as. If you're really put off by its parts, then I think it's necessary to acknowledge that they are just that, parts, and not the sum. Or hell, if you didn't like it the first time you tried it, maybe just give it another go. It's a good video game. Hi, so this took a really long time to make, so thank you for watching it. This video is almost done at the time of saying this, and I'm just recording this after the fact because I was thinking about something. Like I mentioned before, I'm dependent on my parents' infrastructure, and even though I hate it, I can't live without it, and that scares me. And I think that's actually a lot like Monika, depending on the system her creator made for her, and that's terrifying to her, and to me, naturally. I don't know how my feelings will change, how I will change. I don't know if my feelings are valid, but these are the feelings I have about my life and the situation I live in right now, and that situation limits my capacity to recognize other possibilities, like how Monika's script and the preconceptions she was saddled with by it disabled her from finding or recognizing another way out. But it's not like I'm a VN character. So, Monika can't escape her system, but I can, theoretically. I've always been resistant to change because I've always been scared of it, but I'm starting to move from that because I realize now that change is essential, a thing to be cherished even, because I'm a real person and I have the capacity and the privilege to change in the absence of a writer's influence. So I'm going to try to move on from these feelings and change into a better person as best I can and live my life as best I can. I don't know if that will involve making more videos like these in the long run, but on the off chance it does, I have a Patreon. It's on a per video basis, so if I go in a direction that involves me never doing this again, then, well, don't worry about it. I also have a buy me a coffee page to just feed me the one time if you don't want to commit to feeding me a bunch of times over time, so if you would like to help me escape my script, thank you for even considering that, and I'll love you forever. But if you aren't able or willing, just watching this was enough, and I put my heart and soul into this video, and it might not have been great, but I hope it was at least something that you enjoyed and felt something from over the past 40 minutes. I have this channel with its buttons, obviously, and my links to social media and such are in the description, so if you'd like to keep following me and my content, then I would love that. I hope I see you soon. Have a wonderful day.